Hey there, we have like eons of stories to tell, so if you want to follow us along on this journey and keep up with all the stories that we have putting out, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Happy New Year to y'all, and happy 100 subs to me. I actually got 100 subs before my last video that I put up, but I looked at it and I saw that it was over 100 like after I had already made the video. So I want to say it right now, thank you guys so much for 100 subs. All those comments that I get about how y'all enjoy these videos and all those different things, like it just makes me feel so good. And thank you so much, right? It just makes me so happy. Like it just warms me up so much, right? So we're gonna start off today with Spider-Man, and this right here is like leading into Superior Spider-Man. Like this isn't the actual Superior Spider-Man story. This is just the last story before it starts, right? So where we've left off at in the last video that we did on this, Dock Ock had basically left prison, right? Like he was getting broken out of prison by Hydro Man and Scorpion, and they were like no one else knew that Peter Parker and Dock Ock had switched bodies, right? So Peter Parker's out there as Dock Ock, and Dock Ock is out there as Peter Parker, and Peter Parker at this moment is on a date with MJ, which is Dock Ock. But for the sake of the story, I'm just gonna call him Peter Parker because it's gonna get confusing if I don't. So Peter Parker, they're on a date and stuff. They're just like talking, like teasing him, like Peter and MJ getting back together, stuff like that. And he ends up getting like this alert, right? Like his phone is like this alert just starts going off, right? Just like it's just going off, right? And basically what it does is it tells him if Dock Ock escaped prison, right? He had this set up because he knows in his mind how smart Peter Parker is, well, how smart Dock Ock is, right? So like he knows that if Dock Ock were to come and get his body back, he would probably do it. So he had to actually get it in his mind, if Dock Ock were to escape, what could I do, right? Like where's all these different ideas, what could I do, right? That's basically how this story is going to go out, right? It's going to be like both of them and their intelligences basically testing each other, right? Like seeing who can think better first, that kind of stuff, right? So what he does is he actually goes and he tries to get on a plane, right? Like he wants to go and get on a plane, and he's gonna spend most of the rest of Dock Ock's life in the air, so he basically can't get on a plane with them, right? When that happens, Dock Ock and his team, they all end up leaving the prison. They're basically trying to set him up on life support, right? Because he's basically like on his last life, right? Like he is on his last leg. He is like moments away from dying, right? Like he is ready to kick the bucket at any moment. Like it can happen like in the blink of an eye. Like that's how close this guy is to dying, right? What actually happens is like when they actually get his life support like set up, he give him his tentacles and all that different stuff, it actually does kill him, right? Like the shock, it kills him, right? And when that happens, Peter Parker, he shows up in the afterlife, right? He sees all these different people who died, right? Like Captain Stacy, Gwen Stacy, his parents, Uncle Ben, all these different people, right? And what they're telling him is, you have to go back, right? Like you can't, you can't die here. This isn't the end of your story. You have to go back, right? You have to go and get your body back from Dock Ock. You have to go and do this, right? You can't just let him go out and tarnish the reputation that you made for yourself as Spider-Man, right? Because he's a villain. If he stays as Spider-Man, he's gonna do some bad things, right? You can't let that happen, So eventually he ends up waking up, right? So when he wakes up, he actually tells these guys, like his team, like Hydro Man, Scorpion, Trapster, like they're gonna go to the authorities, right? And like when I first saw that, I was like, I mean, what is he gonna do with the authorities, right? Like as soon as he goes in, they're just gonna be like, oh, that's Dock Ock, take him back to jail, just like that, right? But we're actually gonna find out he has a different plan in mind, right? And it's actually kind of funny how it works out, right? So from there we actually get Mayor Jameson, right? J. Jonah Jameson. He's pretty much at the raft, and like he's like telling the press, like like we're gonna get Dock Ock, right? Like we're not gonna let that guy go. He's too dangerous. Yeah, he might be almost dead, but we're gonna bring him back, right? Like his last breath is gonna be behind bars. With that happening, Peter, he's like watching his news broadcast, right? And he ends up like going to get on his plane, basically trying to leave the country. And when that happens, Dock Ock, him and his team, they actually show up at this police station, right? So what he's doing is he's there actually looking for something, right? He's not just going there to like talk to them like oh, like Peter Parker stole my body, stuff like that. That's not at all what's gonna happen, right? As soon as they go in there, they start attacking everybody, right? And when this is the funny part. This is one of the reasons why I like Spider-Man stories, right? So when they go in right, Dock Ock, he's like telling them, he's like, Trapster, Scorpion, Hydro Man, don't kill anyone, right? They're just like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess. And he's like telling them, don't kill anyone, right? Like if like right now, we're not killing anybody, it's probably just gonna be like Spider-Man or Daredevil showing up, right? The small time guys, right? If we kill someone, probably the Avengers are gonna show up, right? And you don't want Hulk and Thor, all those guys walking up in here, right? And when one of these like cops is like saying is like he's like, I mean, it doesn't really work like that. And Dock Ock, he's just like, come on, man, I'm trying to keep you from getting killed, dude. What are you doing? Why would you say that? I love that kind of stuff in Spider-Man stories. It is actually hilarious. Like, that's like one of the best parts, right? So, after that goes on, right? He actually ends up going to the basement, right? So what he's doing is like he goes down there and like they basically confiscated all his technology and stuff that he had on him when he was captured, right? And what he's looking for is like the golden Octobot that he used to switch bodies with Peter Parker in the first place, right? So he can actually use it and try to switch bodies back, right? So when that happens, Carly Cooper actually shows up, right? And she's like trying to stop Dock Ock, but Dock Ock, he's like, okay, Carly, wait, okay, I'm Peter Parker. Dock Ock switch bodies with me, just hang on. And like when she asks him to like, you know, like prove it, and he's just like, I mean, only people who know I'm Spider-Man is you and MJ, right? And she still doesn't believe him, even though she probably should have. And she like shoots at him, and like the bullet bounces off his tentacle, and it comes back and it hits her, right? And she's just like incapacitated, just like that. It doesn't kill her, you know, it just hits her in the arm, but you know, just like puts her down for a bit, right? So they end up leaving, right? With all this, like the broadcast of all this stuff, like it's just like playing on the TV, right? So when that happens, like all these people are seeing this, right? And like Spider-Man, he just like starts showing up to every single person who knows Peter Parker, right? And he like talks them into going to this secure location, right? Like he's trying to gather everyone up and take them there, right? Because if they don't, he's like telling all of them like, okay, yeah, if you don't, Dock Ock is gonna go after everyone who you know like knows Peter Parker, right? Trying to get to me, right? Because of my ties to Peter Parker, even though they're the same person, right? But not everybody knows that. After that happens, right? Like Dr. Octopus, you know, he's just sitting there. He's working on this Octobot, right? He's trying to get it to. He's trying to like reverse engineer it so he can like figure out how to, you know, give it like the reverse effect of what it gave him at first, right? Like instead of giving Dock Ock his memories, he's gonna give Dock Ock his own memories, right? You know, just like that, right? So when that happens, Spider-Man, you know, he actually ends up like showing up on this communications device because, you know, it's his stuff, you know, like if anyone were to be able to hack into it, it'd be Spider-Man or Dock Ock as Spider-Man, you know, he'd be able to do that stuff, you know, like relatively easily. It's pretty much just like, you know, like who can outsmart the other person first, right? And we'll see Spider-Man at this point is like, you know, miles ahead of Dock Ock at this point, right? Because he knows everything that he's done as Dock Ock to basically have this plan enacted, right? So like when he shows up and he says, okay, yeah, Dock Ock, I actually like set this basement to explode and with like this self-destruct button, right? And you know, like when he says that, you know, he tries to press the button to blow it up. Dock Ock, he actually raises it and he shows him like, yeah, I took that out. Like I knew you were doing it. I have your memories. I knew what was going on, right? So what Spider-Man actually ends up doing is he goes and tells us the authorities, like the police and all that stuff, where Dock Ock is, right? Like he tells them where his hideout is and, you know, stuff like that. So they all end up showing up, every single one of them, right? And when that happens, you know, Dock Ock, he's like so persistent on, you know, fixing this golden Octobot that, you know, like he sends Hydro Man and Scorpion out there to basically, you know, stop, like distract all these people, right? Just like make sure they don't come in here, right? When that happens, you know, like Trapster ends up figuring out that Dr. Octopus is making a brain swapping machine, right? I don't know how he figured it out, but he figured it out. And like he's like figuring out, he's like, okay, yeah, you're gonna try to use that on me and try to take my memory because you're dying, like you're gonna try to take my body. So he ends up like waving up Trapster, and you know, like he leaves, right? Like he goes, he gets his submarine, he grabs Hydro Man, Scorpion, and they dip, right? So the first place that they go to is Avengers Tower, right? And they go up in there, you know, they end up getting access because, you know, Dock Ock is Spider-Man and he's an Avenger at the time, right? So he shows up and they're just like they're trying to figure out why they're in Avengers Tower, right? What Dock Ock tells them is like, okay, yeah, I mean, if Trapster can figure out that this is a brain swapping machine, the smartest people on the planet most likely can too, right? You know, you got Hank Pym, Hank McCoy, Iron Man, like they definitely can figure out what this is, right? If I show this to them, they'll, you know, believe me when I say that Peter Parker stole my mind, right? Like that Peter Parker out there, that guy, that is Dr. Octavius, right? Like that's not Peter Parker, okay? They'll probably believe that at that point, right? So when they like look around for a bit, you know, they're looking for Iron Man, you know, Hank Pym, Beast, and all those different people. They actually realize like the building is deserted, like there's no one there. They can't find any of those guys, right? So eventually Spider-Man shows up, right? You know, he's just like sitting there, and what he tells Dock Ock is that he basically activated all the giant Octobots around the world to basically send the Avengers away, right? To give them something to do, so they won't just be around the Avengers Tower, right? And just like actually have some person that Dock Ock can talk to and be like, yeah, that's me. You know, just like that, right? So they're all gone, right? So Spider-Man, he's just gonna basically fend off all these villains, or Dock Ock and Peter's body, by himself, right? So what he actually does is, you know, he like ends up mentioning Jameson, right? Like J. Jonah Jameson, and he's pretty much like sending basically sending Scorpion on a wild goose chase, right? Like basically Scorpion and Hydra Man, they're like, okay, yep, we're gonna go and get Jameson, right? He's the one that did this to me. I'm gonna go and get Jameson, right? So Scorpion, he takes Hydra Man and he takes off, right, going to look for them. And Spider-Man, he chases them, right? Because, you know, like he's Spider-Man at this point. You know, he has to go and save the innocent. You know, he's basically just like trying to leave Doc Ock there by himself. So he ends up like leaving and try to stop them. And like when they show up there, you know, Scorpion, he's just like standing there. He's like trying to fight off. He's like trying to attack Jameson, right? And he figures out like the one thing that he could do first is take out Jameson's dad, right? So basically like, you know, like hurt him, you know, like emotionally, like hurt the closest person to him, you know, stuff like that. Eventually he ends up like trying to like attack Aunt May, right? And like Spider-Man, he gets pissed, right? And he's just like, okay, don't be trying to hit old ladies, right? So he like punches Scorpion, literally punches the entirety of his jaw off of his face, right? That is how strong Spider-Man is, right? Whenever like someone tells you like whenever someone is talking about how strong Spider-Man actually is, bring this up, right? Bring this up. He literally punched the jaw off of an enhanced person's face with literally just punching, right? Because Dock Ock, he's never like figured out that he had to hold his strength back, right? Like he's literally just using Spider-Man's full strength, like with no, you know, with no bars held. Like he's just doing it, right? Like he just doing, because Spider-Man himself, he actually learned this lesson a really long time ago, right? So Dock Ock never learned this, right? So he literally just punches him as hard as he can and punches his jaw off, right? When that happens, he actually realizes Spider-Man could have killed him at any point in time, right? Like that's the thing about Spider-Man. Like of all the villains that he fought, there's none that can actually like go toe to toe with him, right? Like except maybe like Carnage and like Venom, just because they're just as strong as him. But when it comes to like everyone else, like Electro, Scorpion, Dock Ock, all those different people, he could punch them one time and pretty much pretty much kill any one of them, like at any moment. That's why he holds back, right? He doesn't want to kill anyone. Like that's why he does what he does, right? So he actually ends up realizing that, and that's where Dock Ock shows up and he just like grabs Peter, right? He ends up like grabbing Spider-Man. So when that happens, Spider-Man, you know, he starts like attacking, he starts like impact webbing like his friends up, right? And you know, like Spider-Man or Dock Ock, using the the sympathy that he has, you know, he actually like he starts trying to get rid of Spider-Man, right? So what he does is he takes Spider-Man and he jumps out of the window, right? Like he just jumps, and instead of using his web to like grab onto the building, he actually like shoots it down at the ground to basically make like a web net, right? So it won't be like a hard cushion, right? You know, it'll like deflate, you know, it'll be like a giant airbag pretty much, right? So they like hit that, you know, and they actually end up just like coming down. So when that happens, the golden Octobot that Dock Ock was creating or like fixing up to reverse engineer, it actually ends up showing up, right? And it like jumps on Spider-Man, and the first thing it tries to do is it tries to penetrate his mind, right? And as soon as it does that, it stops, right? Because Dock Ock, knowing what this Octobot can do, like he used his intelligence already to basically make carbonadium plating for his body, right? So this that happened to Peter Parker won't happen to him, right? Because like he has this experience already, right? He's done this already. He knows what Dock Ock is capable of. Him being Spider-Man at this time, he knows what he can do to prevent a bunch of stuff from happening, right? With that happening, there's literally no more hope for Peter Parker in Dock Ock's body, right? Like he is just dying. There's no hope for him getting his body back. He is done with all his living at this point, right? So what happens is Spider-Man, with victory actually being guaranteed for him, he starts getting flooded with Peter Parker's memories, right? And it's like he's like going through all this different stuff, right? Like the death of Uncle Ben, the death of Gwen Stacy, all this different stuff, like the worst parts about Peter Parker's life, you know, his memories and stuff like that. Dock Ock has to experience it at this point, right? And he doesn't want it. Like when he wanted to become Spider-Man at first, he just didn't want to die, right? And like now, and figuring out that he's Spider-Man, you know, he has all this different stuff. He's trying to figure out like how Peter Parker was doing what he did, like going through all this different stuff. Peter Parker never gave up, right? Like it basically fuels Peter Parker to actually do better stuff for people around him, so that stuff won't happen again to those people that he loves now, right? And like when he's trying to get convinced, Dock Ock, like literally with his last dying breaths, right? Like he's just asking him, protect them, right? Like protect my family, protect my friends. You're Spider-Man now. You decided that you wanted to do this. You have to protect them, right? Just promise me, right? And Spider-Man says, I promise I will protect them. And with that, Dock Ock dies, right? And Spider-Man says, thank you, Peter Parker. You didn't leave the Spider-Man as a villain, right? You didn't leave this responsibility to a villain. You left it to a hero, right? And with using my intellect, I'm going to try to be a better Spider-Man than you, right? I am the superior Spider-Man. So with that story being over, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and I will see y'all in the next one.